beginning of. So let me just say that this is about organizing the speech, how we organize our bags, how we organize our suitcase when we go on for a vacation. Now, that vacation can be a hill station, that vacation can be a foreign location, that vacation can be a seaside town, or that can be a jungle. My entire bag that I have packed depends upon the kind of location that I am going. Each and everything that is inside my bag depends upon the location. Similarly, when we talk about speech organization, it is nothing but putting everything in a speech uh, which is suitable for a particular audience, which is suitable for a particular result. Uh, I must know who is my audience. KYC, we always talk about know your audience before we give the speech. So today, what we will explore is different methods of organizing the speech, how to, how to create impactful introductions and conclusions, and then some connectives as to how we can connect these speeches and how we interact with the audience. So this is more so about organizing your speech, not about writing your speech. So, which clothes you are taking, what thing that you are taking is something which you are deciding yourself. I am helping you put all these things in a bag, in a suitcase. So why organize? Because what happens is that if we have excess things in our bag, the bag will not get closed. So there are so many things, and we have to decide as to what all things need to be put inside the bag. What are things will be necessary while we are going there or while we are giving the speech, and what are the things that we should eliminate? What are the things we should take out from the suitcase so that my bag is light, my bag is something which I can carry, and wherever I go, it is helpful for me in the sense that audience remains attentive, audience remains to the point, and they understand what I'm trying to say. Okay, good so far? So in a speech, obviously we talk about three things: introduction, body, and conclusion. So, entire organization of speech that I'm going to talk about today will be divided into three parts. First is introduction, then is body, then it is conclusion. And I've said this before many times. If you get a CC manual, what I mean by CC manual is that before pathways came in Toastmasters, we had a competent communicator manual, and what we say traditional Toastmasters. And that CC manual is very beautiful in the sense that it teaches you right from first speech to the 10th speech. And if you perfect that CC manual, then it becomes easy for you to uh, you know go ahead in your journey. Today I see so many people who are not able to organize their speech. So because even the evaluators hardly point the problem in the structure of the speech. They will talk about body language. They will talk about voice modulation. They will talk about stage presence. So many things. But evaluators also tend to ignore about the speech structure. So after this session, my request to all the evaluators is to pay close attention to the to the structure of the speech while they are giving the evaluation. So very quickly, 10% of your speech should be introduction, 10% should be conclusion, and what remains 80% should be the body of the speech. Okay. Now let's first talk about introductions. So why introductions? Why not come straight away to the point? Why not say, straight away start talking about things that we want to say? So first of all, introductions are there to for the audience to gain interest, for the audience to get settled in the speech, get settled with whatever you are saying, get settled with your tone, get settled with your kind of way that you are speaking. So small introductions are never harmful. They help you in terms of gaining the focus of the attention. They also help you in terms of revealing the topic. You clearly state what you want to discuss. There are so many speeches in which uh, we reveal the topic, or we get to know the topic towards the end. Now, by the time, sometimes the audience is actually very bored and they lose the interest. Uh, so, there should be some hint or some reveal about the topic as to what you are talking about. Then, after that, or not after that, it is also to establish the credibility, with the audience, building the trust with the audience. Now, if you are coming to the body, directly coming to the body is sometimes a, sometimes. Okay, can you please mute your mic? Somebody's mic is unmuted. So it is a preview to the body. Now, if you are coming to one point before giving some kind of a background about it, or before, uh, like for example, Dheeraj gave my introduction. After he gave my introduction, you must have got some idea about who this person is. Most of you may know me, but there will be many people who may not know me. So they will come to know about what is he going to speak about, or are his credentials. So it is a kind of a preview to the body of the speech. Now, there are various methods of gaining the attention. My mentees constantly ask me as to how to gain the attention of the audience. I can through my years in next 9 years plus, I've seen so many speeches. I remember so many speeches in which audience attention has been gained. For example, Toastmaster Syam once came dressed up, totally as a military person because he was giving some speech about military. Similarly, Toastmaster Sanjeev also came in such way. Santosh Akela's first speech, in which he took a pen and he broke the pen and threw on the floor. So there are various ways, and you still remember Santosh Akela. You can understand. 6 years, 7 years ago, when he gave the first speech. Jamie, I always remember. She has been a PowerPoint master. So always she gains attention by through her effective use of PowerPoints. Her PowerPoint slides are sometimes 30, 40 or something like that, but she uses that very, very effectively. So uh, there are various ways of gaining the attention, but mostly it is how to relate with the audience. You should not and cannot do all these things that I mentioned in this particular slide, but one or two, three things you can try depending upon the subject, depending upon the general purpose and the specific purpose of your speech. If the specific purpose is something in which you want to attract the attention of the audience for a particular topic which is very serious, you can startle the audience. Uh, we have Toastmaster Sanish. He constantly asks the questions, how many of you, or do you, and things like that. Telling a story. There are many people who tell a story about personal lives, who talk about things and then they relate that topic to that. I've seen people cracking jokes also, or you can just start, state the importance of the topic. Starting with the quotation is something which is very, very common, but it should relate to the topic. What happens when you do all these things is that instead of using hundreds of words, just by saying these things you would be able to drive your point, or an anecdote which will help you drive that point. For example, I just gave you the example of packing the bags for the suitcase, packing the bags for the vacation. Now, if you are packing a bag for the vacation, you have a limited capacity. Airlines will allow only 15 kg. So in that 15 kg, what all you should pack? Similarly, you have 4 to 6 minutes or 5 to 7 minutes. In those 5 to 7 minutes, what is it that you are going to pack in your bag of your speech, so that everything is balanced, everything is covered in that? Or sometimes we also do out of fun is that we refer to the previous speaker's speech, or previous speaker. We try to pull legs of the other speaker. In fact, I have done in few of my speeches hashtag SPP, in which I had come with a wig, impersonating Santosh Akela, Arvind Chanmohan, Vidya. So, that is something which will help you to attract the attention. Now, coming to effective introduction, most people what they tend to make mistake is that the introductions are very long. Sometimes people don't do the introduction, but there are some people who do a very long introduction, and again people tend to lose focus. So today what happens is that the moment you start boring the audience, people will take out their mobile phone and start looking at the WhatsApp chat and whatnot. And then, even if you are saying something very important, they will forget that, and they will not look at your speech. Now, how can you be creative here? How can you be creative in your introductions? There are many ways. I myself do so many things in terms of, say, for example, if I am introducing somebody in the club, I play with the words, I play with the name, and it's not something which I can borrow from somewhere. It's most of the times it's on the spot. There's somebody's name, somebody is doing something, and then I play with those words. It helps to build your image. It helps to build your credentials, and also the fact that you are being creative and you are attracting the attention. Now, while you are preparing the best part is that it is just 10% of your speech. But for that percent or that 10%, you have to work hard and study a lot, do a lot of research, and then concise into 10%. Body is fine, but the important part is the introduction. For that introduction of 10%, you have to make, I think, 5 times, 10 times the efforts. So my suggestion for everybody is that don't worry about the introduction. Don't worry about the conclusion. First, start working on the body of the speech. Once you develop the body of the speech, then you can stitch around the introductions and the conclusions along with that. Okay, this is again, everybody has got different methodology. Everybody has got a different way of doing things. This is something which I do. I I often mind map the main idea, then create a sub ideas and all that, and then after everything is done, as to how I can introduce this topic. Because when you have done the entire body, you will know what is it that is most important, which you can put in the introduction. Conclusion is a bit easier. Why? Because by the time you reach the conclusion, it's only the summarizing and all those things which are left. I'll come to conclusion later, but that's how introductions should be done. Now, let's come to the next point. First of all, I talk to you about the body, sorry, introduction. Then we talk about the main body. In the main structure points, again, we often get the comments from the evaluators that there's a your speech was confusing because you talked about many things. Here we mostly talk about power of three. So speeches, it's not that you should use three all the times, but power of three is something which is proven that you can remember three things, you can communicate three things. It is easier for the audience to grasp these three things. So there should be a limited number of main points. Everything cannot be a main point. When you are packing your bag, you must know that there's a t-shirt and there's a jeans. These are your main clothes that you are wearing. Now, if you want to carry a towel or not will depend upon which place you are going. Are they going to provide towel there or not? If they are providing a towel, then obviously there's no point taking it. So that gets eliminated from the main point. Uh, so ideally, as I said, two to three, but there are some people who have got the capacity of five. But five also depends upon the kind of speech that you are giving, the content of your speech. Uh, Again here, what is the good practice is that you have seen a cow eats the food and then puts it in a pouch here, and then keeps on chewing, 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 And then after it is finally in a digestible position, then it takes in their body, inside the body. Similarly is the speech. You should write your speech, you should talk about your speech, you should think about your speech, you should speak, you should uh, read each and every word written, what you have written your speech n number of times. Why? Because how is the possibility of reducing the speech? What is the possibility of reducing the words in that speech? How can you communicate the same message in the lesser words? Or if it is so important, how can you increase the words to make it more impactful? So condensing the content and making it appropriate for the speech is very important. Why do we iron the clothes and then inside the suitcase? Purely because when the clothes are ironed, they are put in a very nice way. If you don't iron these clothes and if you just dump them, then you will not be able to carry the same amount of clothes for your vacations, because obviously uh, they are not kept in a proper order. They are not organized. So let's talk about body. So mainly in the body there are five types of speeches. They can be five types of speeches, or you can arrange the speech in these five ways: chronological, spatial, causal. This is not casual, this is causal, and topical, and finally problem solution. So I'll just talk about each methodology in my next slide. So first is chronological. So here if the specific purpose is, if you are informing your audience as to when the Great Wall of China was built. Now, it has to be a chronological order. So, you will talk about Qin dynasty, then you talk about Han dynasty, then you'll talk about Ming dynasty. You will show the Great Wall of China. You will show the various points where you will show the areas which were built during that duration. So, in chronological speech, you are educating the audience or your gathering about how things reach the final stage from the origin to the destination. So this is all about chronological order. Then we talk about spatial order. Here again, uh, this is the method in which we are mainly talking about a directional pattern. So, for example, we are talking about the design of the Eiffel Tower. Now, there we talk about, first we talk about the top section. In top section, it has got an observatory, skywalks, spectacular views. Middle section has got staircase and elevator. Lower section has restaurant, gift shop, all these kind of things. So you are educating the audience about the geography. You are taking the audience in the Eiffel Tower. You have to build everything around that. Your word should be that audience should be able to visualize that particular Eiffel Tower and that particular thing. So again, when we talk about organization, we follow a certain pattern. You cannot talk about the top section and then you talking about the bottom section, and then at some point of time you start talking about the middle section. Everything is in a sequence. Everything goes after one another. Then we talk about the topical order. Again, this is one kind of a speech in which uh, what we are trying to do is that we are taking an artist, and what we are trying to do is that we are trying to define the versatility of that artist. Now, here, the example that I've given is, say, Pablo Picasso. So, you are talking about the versatility of his art, of his painting, of his structures, as a painter, as a sculptor. About what is Pablo Picasso? How can you enlighten the audience? How can you enrich the audience with new set of information which they do not know? Now, here the thing is that there's no pattern, in the sense that you cannot go on chronological order, that first he did this, then he did that, and you cannot go in a spatial order. Here we talk about the logical sequence. So what we can talk about here is, we can talk about the works, excuse me. Here, here we can talk about the various works that he has done. Now, the organization of his speech is when you have to understand what has Picasso done, what all he has achieved, and how can you bring all those things in three different buckets. And after those three different buckets, how can you arrange those buckets and uh, share to the audience? Now, here, after you explain and after you share these three buckets, you will be able to make audience understand. It may have happened that Picasso may have done many things, small, small things. Even in terms of, say, painting, he must have done various types of painting. But when you have a 5 to 7 minutes time, please understand what is it that you can show. Many a times people concentrate on, say, one point, and the other 2 points are not given that sufficient attention. And that is where the whole structure gets lost. Why? Because people know about one thing very clearly, and after one thing has taken too much time, and you hurry upon the other two things, and then conclusion you hurry, then the whole structure of the speech is lost. Then we talk about problem solution. It is simple. We are talking about a problem. There's a traffic issue, then there's a issue of the trees getting cut. For example, terrorism issue these days, which is bogging us. There are frauds which are happening on phone. So there are various things. Simple. What is a fraud? What is a solution? So your entire speech can be in two different parts. One is you are explaining the kind of activity which is happening, and second, you are giving the solution. Again, here you can use storytelling, you can use various things to communicate your point. You use your own example, you can use the example of somebody else who has faced this problem. So the structure of your speech is that there's a problem, and then there's a solution. So in the end, what you are trying to say is that what you are trying to tell the audience is that what is it that is actually needed. Is there a legislature which is needed? Is there a specific people movement which is needed? Is there an awareness which is needed? And you come to that in your conclusion. Okay. Then we come to the causal order. Now here we are talking about the causes and the solutions. What is the cause? What is the solution? So, for example, today we talk about what are the possible causes of why did the Mayan civilization fall through. Now, before talking about why the civilization fell through, you will have to talk about how it began, how it flourished at some point of time, and then possibly what are the major reasons why it started disintegrating. This is something specific which can come in your body of the speech. I'll just go to, yeah. So if you see here, so there are five arrangements: chronological, spatial, casual. So this list is not exhaustive, but I'm just trying to share that how you can organize your main points in different ways. If you see in all these five lists, there's a different pattern. There's a different pattern of organizing the body of your speech. When Personally, when I write my speeches, I'm very finicky about my writings. I'm very finicky about what I'm writing. Uh, and primarily that is because there's a lot of editing which is involved. Today, when we talk about the club quality, when we talk about open houses, when we talk about why members are not attending, why guests are not coming, it is so much to do with the quality of the speeches. And this quality can come only through if you understand that your speech is not just something which you take from Dharmesh one evening, and then Dharmesh keeps on reminding you, give the title of the speech. The very fact that the agenda is delayed is primarily because people are not ready with the topic. Uh, it, you should have at least, studied your speech at least 5 times, 10 times before you give the, topic of the speech, before you give the details of the speech. And this will definitely, you'll understand, this will definitely help the quality of your speech. This will help the quality of the meetings, because then you're coming to the stage much more prepared. Okay. Now let's come to, so how do you, how do you prepare these main points? First of all, when we talk about the main points, these points should be very, very clear, distinct, and separate. Whatever you are trying to communicate, there should not be an overlap between these main points because it confuses the audience. Each point that you are trying to say should focus on a single idea. This idea, if you're talking about chronological sequence, then you should talk about one, two, three. If you are talking about causes and effect, then you should talk about what are the causes, what are the effects. So you have to be very focused and clear in your writing. Most of the people, again, what they do is that they write their speeches and then they start thinking about where will the body movement come, where will the facial expressions come, where will these gestures come, and then they fit the gestures, body movement in the speeches. uh, what I try to do is that if I'm writing a speech and if I have to prepare, if I, I use a lot of props in my speech. So when I know that I'm using the props and I need to be comfortable with my props so that there's no goof up on the stage, then I need to decide the prop in advance and weave my story around that particular prop. And that is how the speech becomes a better speech. I'll not say good speech, but a better speech. So, similarly, you have to be very, very clear before writing your speech that this is the point where I'm going to give this gesture. This is the point where I'm going to do this. So, the entire stage movement, body movement, there are things which may appear to be impromptu, but even every impromptu thing should be planned in advance for the audience to consume it in a better way. Okay. Now, we are talking about trying to use parallel wordings in your uh, main points. Again, while we are talking about main, having a clear cut focused idea, but the theme of the entire speech, your point should not be different. Your point should communicate your theme. All your main points should communicate the same theme. There are some times in which some points are on a different plane altogether. Now, if I talk in terms of, say, you must have seen me talking about Natya Shastra. I am a great propagator, believer of Natya Shastra. And Natya Shastra, Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra has got 9 rasas. And in these 9 rasas, we can have one main ras and one sub-ras in any of the speech. Say, for example, Hasya ras. Now, Hasya ras cannot be merged with the Karuna ras or Shringar ras. Shringar ras cannot be merged with the Veer ras. So, similarly, your main points or your writing should communicate some rasa so that your the river that flows, the string that binds your main points should be very, very clear and should be same. uh, I have said this before and I'm again repeating it, that balance the time which is devoted. People tend to speak about one thing in detail, but they forget about, forget about the second part and the third part. And then what happens is that people don't remember it. People remember only one thing and they don't remember the other part. So you should be giving enough attention to all the three parts of your speech so that your main points, the main points are main points. They should not happen that main points become the sub point. Sometimes the main points you give enough time to main point and then don't give enough time to the other two main points, so they become sub points, and that's how you lose the importance. Before we go towards the before we go towards the conclusion of the speech, I'll briefly talk about the connectives, or the bridges or the transitions. Uh, this is again one of the comments from all the evaluators. The transitions have not been good. The transitions from one to another have not been good. Now, how does he? how does he move from one thought to the another thought? This all comes under organizing your speech. This all comes in your writing of your speech. The moment you are writing your speech, how you are ending your speech, the last word uttered in one main point should be connected to the first word of your second main point. And that is how your transitions can be smoother. I hope I'm able to make a point. Why? Because transition something becomes very very difficult. Why? Because uh, it's not very easy thing to do. It's a very difficult thing in terms of writing. But I'm sure if you apply your mind towards it, then uh, you will be able to do that. Second thing which we talk about is internal previews. Now, when we are talking about one point, you somehow give a hint to the audience what is going to come next, and that is weaved in your story, that is weaved in some of the subplot in your story. So audience will know that he's talking about, say, he's talking about rains and all that, and then he's moving towards a church gate, and then he's talking about a restaurant. Now he'll talk about the bhajia, people having hot tea and things like that. So your transitions can be managed better when in your speech, when in your writing of your speech, you should give a sneak preview of the main portion, the second main point. And that is how it will help you also in the transitions. Third connectives is after each, it can be done in few speeches, it cannot be done every time, but internal summaries. So at every stage, so that, and if the speech is so serious, if the speech is something which you are not which we don't expect people to remember, then you summarize at the end of each section. uh, so I've said this, remember this. What I do is, again, I use a lot of acronyms here. And why, when I say acronyms, so for example, what should I say? Say care, CARE, connect, appreciate, recommend, encourage. So this is an acronym. Now, every time when you are giving a speech, and if you create an acronym, then you are automatically connecting the audience. So internal summaries, when you are creating, reminding listeners or as to what is the summary of this particular section, people will automatically understand your speech. And the final thing is signposts. What are the signposts? You must have seen the signpost, on the roads, coming next. This is so many kilometers away, or something like that. This is just in your speech, when you are organizing your speech, you are giving the audience as to flavor of things to come after 2 minutes, after 3 minutes, or towards the end of the speech. Probably some hint, like picture abhi baki hai mere dost, picture abhi meri baki hai. So you are trying to communicate something, that this is not the end of whatever I am trying to communicate. There's something which is yet to be followed. Let's come to the conclusion. What is the need of conclusion? And this is the most neglected part in any speech. Why? Because people spend time in introductions, people spend time in body of the speech, but conclusion they hurry. Now, conclusion, obviously, what is the purpose of conclusion? It's a signal that the speech is ending. Sometimes the speech ends and audience does not know that the speech has ended unless and until he says, thank you, over to you, the Toastmaster of the day. uh, but that is not the correct way. Everybody should know, understand. They should feel that the speech has ended. Second thing is that whatever you are trying to communicate, whatever point that you have driven initially, that has been driven or not, or that has been whatever ice cream that you are trying to see, that flavor has been served to the audience or not. So that is something which you need to understand when we talk, when you think about the speech introduction. Now, to conclude here, what I would like to say is that, in conclusion, most people, what they do is that, and I've said this many times earlier in my evaluations, uh, what we tend to say, overall, a good speech, you did this, you did that. And if you do this, I give you a challenge, you'll be a much better speaker. Now, what kind of conclusion is this? I do not agree with this, kind of conclusion. Uh, Sometimes, you need to just summarize. So you can use an acronym. Again, I'm saying, because in the end, you are driving a point, you are trying to make the audience remember and understand what you said during your entire speech. So people will just remember that acronym and will remember you. There can be many ways to conclude your speech. Like I said, the ways to begin the speech, same can be applied to the end of the speech. There are few speakers who tie the beginning with the end so that their point is communicated. Sometimes there's a dramatic ending. Sometimes it happens that people are very brief. They just said, okay, ending the speech. So overall, the point here is that, and especially if you're in a contest, conclusion is very important. Why? Because this is the time this is the time judges are marking you. This is the time when judges are giving you the marks against whatever you have said. And if it is if it is not very clean and clear, then it falls flat, and then obviously you do not get the good marks out of it. So my suggestion is that when you are packing the bag, make sure that everything essential that you need to carry for that vacation must be there in the bag. Opening, body, conclusion, 10, 80, 10. In that 80, divide into three parts, three parts or four parts as the speech objective might be. And end the speech, conclude the speech with a bang instead of a whimper. Okay? So that's for now. अच्छा तो हम चलते हैं. Over to you, Dheeraj. Thank you so much.
Thank you, DTM Vinay, for educating us on how to draft, how to organize your speech, and be an effective and uh, good orator and public speaker. Thank you so much. Can we have few questions from the audience, DTM Vinay?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
So audience are requested, if you have any question, you can ask him right now. We can take few questions.
Yeah, this is Dharmesh here. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
You mentioned about this transition. So, suppose if I'm giving a story, what kind of transition can I use? Or just an example of transition can I use to connect the story, say one portion to the second portion?
So transitions are nothing. So in your story, for example, I'm just giving you an example. You are talking about, there's a farmer in the village, blah blah blah, and somebody comes in the village and he treats him, and then he goes back to the city, and then he comes back again to the city, sees the farmer rich and things like that. So if you are trying to drive a motivation story, and there are three parts of it, those transitions in terms of the parts of the story, the three parts of the story, or whatever you are trying to communicate, just make sure that they are weaved properly. In the sense that you are talking about in your story about one character, and suddenly you start talking about the other character. Now, any character that you bring in your story have must have an introduction. How will people understand who is he who is coming in your story? How will person understand as to if you are going to some location, you have to build a location. When you're giving context to the location, you are not giving context from one location to the other location. And probably that is how you make sense in terms of taking your story forward.
Okay.
We can take one more question if anyone is having any doubt.
Yeah.
Yes, please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this wonderful educational session, which I was waiting since a long time. My question is like I've heard a lot of times that Toastmaster Vinay speaks about the rasas in the story which we should include. So if I'm building up a story, so should I use connecting rasas or should I use two or three ras like now in the navras? I've heard it before also, but I want little more clarity on it.
So rasa is nothing but emotion. Rasa is emotion of the story. What is the emotion that you are writing? You cannot have a conflicting emotion in your story. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to decide for yourself what is the emotion that you want to communicate to the audience.
Okay.
You cannot, these navras, nine ras, hasras, raudras, vibhatsras, shringar shant ras. So these are different kinds of rasas and which are very different from the other. If you are trying to communicate a story or if you are trying to communicate about, say, yogasan, you are talking about yogasan. Yogasan, you cannot communicate in virras. Virras, you are talking about that. If you are talking a story about a war, then you are talking about a virras. If you are talking about some suspense story, then it can be, Raudras or Vibhasras, something like that. So you have to define for yourself what are your primary emotions that you are trying to capture in your writing. And this all starts, you cannot write a speech and then insert an emotion into that. When you are writing your speech, you have to think about the emotion that you wish to communicate. If
Thank
you
you
are
so
talking about your child, if
much.
you're talking about your child, if you're talking about your day-to-day interactions with your daughter, your nok jhonk with your son or your husband, somewhere Vatsalya Ras will come into picture. If you're talking about something, you are talking about your husband-wife teasing and things like that at your home, somewhere Shringar Ras will come into picture. Now in Shringar Ras, again, you are talking about husband and wife teasing each other on certain points, but then suddenly you brought about virus. How you can brought about virus is sometimes, your husband becomes very brave and starts talking about certain things. So there a tinge of virus is inserted in your speech. That's what I mean. Now, it's a very vast and big subject. There are rasas and then there are bhav. That's another level of, when you are writing your speech. So each rasa will have some bhav attached to that.
So, but just
So
one more question. I'm trying to make a speech on awareness. Like I have a client and she is being body shamed. So I was just trying to understand which Rus I can include. I know it's an emotional thought and being, but along with that, can I include like this or what should I go ahead? Because I'm trying since a
it
long time.
depends upon, this is your topic. This is your topic. It depends upon what you're trying to write.
Hmm.
It would be unfair if I say that you can, being body shamed, somebody feels disgusted. Rodriguez comes into picture because he's feeling disgusted, utterly disgusted. This is what I've been done. This is what society is doing to me. Somewhere his anguish is coming out.
Hmm.
It depends upon the wordings of your speech. It depends upon the structure of your speech, how you are writing that speech.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, DTM Vinay, for such an insightful educational session. Thanks once again. We will move to the next segment. That is, do we have guests in the meeting?
Yes. Hi, my name is Benita.
Okay, so let's, yes.
S-
Please tell your name, what do you do, and how you get to know about Agnel Toastmaster Club.
So actually, I got in touch with Rota because I wanted to join the club, but obviously because of some health issues, I wasn't able to come in for the in-person sessions. So Rohitas was kind enough to send me like an online invite for this session. I work as a project manager at Oxford University. I'm currently in India for a break. So, and I work in the field of clinical research.
Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Nice. Thank you. Thank you for the invite and nice. Yeah. Thank you for this great session.
Do we have any other guests? Okay, so there's a few announcements in today's meeting. First, we have a next meeting on 3rd of May. All are requested to join. And subsequent to that, on 4th of May, we have a divisional contest. All are requested to those members who have recently joined, all are requested to please enroll for their pathway. Mentors are requested to please guide your mentees to and ensure that they enroll for their pathway before 30th of April, because for Diamond Club Award, we need to ensure that there is a 100% pathway adoption. And at the end, we will have a group photo. So all are requested to please switch on your camera so that we can have a smiling faces together attending educational session on Saturday evening. Okay, so let all are requested to please switch on your camera. The person who will switch on the camera at the end, last person will be given the team-out role in subsequent meeting. So let me check who is the last person eager to take the role of team-out. I could see. So we have 6 people. Others are interested with the team-out role. Please switch on your camera. I can see only 6 people have switched on their camera. Okay, we will go ahead with these 6 people.
Ron, Ruchi, Vidya,
Hi, yes.
Padmapani, Tejas, Varun, everybody can switch on your video for a couple of minutes. We'll just have a photo.
Just for let me snipping tool. Okay, so smile, please. One more time. In this, I was not looking good. One more time, please. Yes, it is done. Thank you so much for joining the meeting. We will meet on 3rd of May. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Vinay sir.
Thank you so much.